Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to BRIC's Animation, Visual Effects, and Gaming Pre-Apprenticeship Speaker Series. I'm Sarah. I'm BRIC's Director of Communications and your moderator for this series. And this speaker series from the BRIC Foundation aims to give you an inside look at all of the cool careers and inner workings of the animation, visual effects, and gaming industries. I'm super excited to welcome today's guest, Cecil Kim, who is the studio art director for That Game Company and also an adjunct professor at Art Center College of Design. We'll hear from Cecil about his career journey working as a concept artist in the gaming industry and what it's like to specifically work on environment art for games, which is the topic of today's webinar. As always, we'll host a live Q&A session during the last 15 minutes of this webinar. So be sure to use that Q&A button that you see at the bottom of your screen to submit any questions that you might have for Cecil along the way. And with that, I'll turn it over to you, Cecil, to tell us more about your career journey and your experience.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you, everyone. Yeah, it's all over US. That's great. Yeah, as Sarah introduced, I'm an artist and I'm currently art director, and also I teach. My background is a concept art, so it says environment art for games, but this is probably mostly covering concept development. I put together some slides. So wasn't sure what need to focus because there's a lot to talk about. So I kind of designed this talk to help you guys in also production and also a little bit of career tips and stuff. Yeah, so let me start. So I actually studied in 96, graduated in 96 at Art Center. There was no concept. So I studied illustrations, and my first job was Square, and then I worked on Parasite Eve and Final Fantasy 9. The both games are released on PlayStation 1. Yeah, this we're talking about ancient time. I mean, very limited computer things that you can do. Rarely you can really paint. You can just scan and just color your drawings. And then I went to Sony and developed God of War from the very beginning. So that took about 11 years of my life. And then the God of War 3 and the God of War 4, that's where I left Sony to start some small studio with a couple friends of mine. So you can ask like what did you leave Sony? Um, like when you're working on big title for so long, sometimes you want to question your potential, not just being a concept artist, but also like having some creative um control, not control, but like you have some game idea. You want to sort of see how you can bring your own like game under your vision. The only way to do that is like I had to like start small. So Section Studio was about 9 years I ran. Start with concept art outsourcing. So we were working with Sony, a lot of the Activision studios, Riot Games, and also a lot of other mid-tier developers required some art support. And this is one of the games that we made. And then we made also Tinosia. So when you have a small studio, a small limited resources, you always have to be in a network with meeting other people in a similar situation. So we developed this network and met a lot of Unity developers. So we team up with some other indie companies to make collaboration projects. So we're very good at art, but we're building the engineering and the design side of things. So if you're familiar with game production is mainly like kind of big 3 or 4 pillars. One is being art, one is design, which is sort of architect of the game, right? Meaning like figuring out what character is going to do, combat, level design, system design, all this stuff. And then there's engineering, who's really going to understand the capacity of the product and what type of feature we can put in. And if there's a multiplayer, and you have to have another set of engineering support, which is a backend. So it's like depends on the game. The team can structure can different, but art is always one of the first thing um, required. So, and then this is a VR game I made with my friend of mine, Jonathan Hawkins. So, so you can see like first career, I worked on console games in a big studios. And then I left the company and I did mobile games and PC games and VR games. So within 9 years, that's I kind of learned a lot about different scale of the game production and also building different IP. IP means intellectual property. So if there's a game, Super Mario is a game, but when Mario can be used for other media or toys or not, that's IP, right? Now I'm at a tech game company because I really believe games should be respected. Um, and that's not reality. And I didn't like that. I always want the game to be um, sort of um, view as positive, inspirational, because game as a medium is a very interesting um, collaboration. You need to have a very creative mind, artistic mind, and you need to have a very problem-solving technical mind. And there's a story, there is a music, and there's a the gameplay mechanics, and everything can be also user input. Um, game the gameplay setup. So I love games. And this company, particularly tech game company, the mission is elevating the game as an art form. And then we believe that someone has to do that, and someone has to take the risk, and then we hope that that's going to inspire you guys and then future game developers or our um, people in industry, so we can all think about this other way of creating a game content. Really early on when I went to art center, I I knew how to draw and paint, but the thing that really changed my um, myself and established as who I am was the learning perspective, because this is just simple flat perspective, but this is actually 9 by 11 foot charcoal drawing. I was more like fine artist back then, so I always wanted to make something big. And the perspective, once I learned perspective, I couldn't believe how you could actually create this immersive environment using perspective. And that was very interesting to me. So from that point on, I was more of a buildings and architectures and environments and world building person. And I like the feeling of people who ever look at my work, I can kind of take them to my imagination, right? So it's more like invitation, so I'm kind of like taking you guys to this place and sort of hoping that you can immerse into my idea. This was kind of reference the LA, Los Angeles freeway system. So, and before I learned computer, all that stuff, I learned traditionally. So I like sketchings and stuff, and that still has been foundation of my work. Um, and then one thing I also want to talk about here is so difference between illustration and fine art and concept art is who you are creating work for, right? So fine art is basically quite independent, meaning you don't get direction from gallery saying, can you draw 10, like mountain pictures, whatnot. It's you have to come up with the artwork, and you have to like keep innovating or searching for your artwork. Where illustration is a little bit in between because you still get work job from editorial or advertising clients or agency. They ask you certain problem solving, right? If they want to feature, like for example, like Nike shoes in a new materials, and there's two way to do it, like making it look really awesome, so people gonna look at it again, or you gotta put in a thought process where people are gonna look at the your painting, and they figure out, oh, this is about Nike. Wow, that's really interesting, right? So part of my learning from Art Center when I was learning illustration was that editorial thinking process. I can talk about it a little bit more. And then there's a concept art. Well, concept art is very strictly is for service, meaning your job is there to problem solve for your team or your director, right? So it's really important to go through iterations and understanding the problem solving and what is the most best design to support the production need. And the image above is a cameraman, but well, one time I was working at Sony, and Shannon Stussy, studio director, told me that it's kind of like concept artists are kind of like being a lens for director, meaning when film director, for example, when they figure out the shots and everything, they rely on cinematographer to provide the colors and angles and all that stuff. So you're basically being our eyes for this creative directors, right? So once you understand that, you can kind of know your clear objective. It's not really for you to make great art. That's the fine art. Or it's not really about retaining your art style and problem solving and serve certain um, either show or that's the illustration. But concept art is mainly is service uh, work. Um, so and then like, but then that sounds kind of boring. But uh, from my experience working in either a small game or big game or indie game or AAA games, it's always there's a two separate steps. One is so-called like high-level pre-production, meaning this is when like project is get green lit or hasn't green lit yet, or very small team trying to start the project and what is the project. That's when concept team and visual development team, even like look dev team or R&D team, trying to figure out what is the game. So there's difference. The purpose is same, but underneath the goal is slightly different because this particular image, I did this for internal pitch for Sony, but this was kind of sums up the game back then. So this was used for kind of explain the team. There's a lot of big military space, but there's a lot of vehicles going in and out and um, experience so exploration there. So you can see there's like a lot of photo reference being used. And then this one is a pre-production image, but this was done mainly for trying to figure out the visual style of the game. This was a VR game, so there was a lot of limitation on poly counts and texture size we can use because everything has to go through a double the amount of draw call. So my approach was like, how do we make this interesting alien planet with these simple shapes? And then there is also if the game talks about this very crazy idea about people are traveling between timeline, or there's a clear indication of the historic events and whatnot, then also a lot of these paintings are also going to help to team to understand what the game is, right? This is a world setting. This is also done for And then this is like also story moments, meaning we're trying to visualize this great war between angels and demons, and what is the way of we seeing it in a completely different view. So this was one of my idea too. And then also obviously when you design the game, there's a key moments and locations in between, right? So also understanding what that is also part of the process in the early pre-production. So this was one of the idea for the new God of War, not the recent one, but also the previously done one, right? Yeah. So another key moments where this is more like a providing puzzle idea. So for example, in this case, I thought about this the statue of a giants warriors. They're behind the waterfall, but once you unlock the puzzle, not only the statue gives you the line up the bridge for you so you can walk across, but then there's also second creature statues comes out or things like that. So something like this is also really fun because there's no limitation. And main objective of this is to sort of explain the team the what the game is, and also inspire them in terms of the gameplay ideas, right? So I really enjoy this process. Um, we call it blue sky paintings, but depends on the project. Like sometimes you get like 3 6 months of this, but sometimes you only get 1 month. Depends on the scope and how quickly the game needs to come out. Another idea, yeah, like giant forest. You ride the horse through this area, and then the giants, the sleeping giants, wake up. This is done by Q Valley. So we also at when I was at Section Studio, we are helping another company to build their world Bibles. This is also not only color but different elements in this scene. So technically, like this is more. I think it was like action RPG. And then there's different like levels that looks different and has a slightly different materials and stuff. So by looking at all this, you can even have a discussion all day long about, oh, what could potentially be here, what kind of loot you can get here, what kind of creature you're gonna get here. So this is huge part of the environment art. The concept art is contributing to define the game. This is the most exciting aspect of the game development too. And then second part is now you getting into production. So production is very um, information driven, meaning like if you break up the schedule, it's like pre-production is orange and production is the long. Again, like depends on the project, that slide bar can change. And then towards the end, there's a marketing. Marketing could be like trailer or even um, the print materials and posters or key art, all that things also sometimes an environment artist needs to work on that. So if the objective here is slightly different, but pre-production is mostly like providing ideas so that team and the director can figure out the scope and then what the game is. And then when you get into production, it's mostly the making assets. Meaning, if there's a level that you have to, someone needs to design the building and layouts, and even the simple thing as like, mailbox or even put street signs, all those things depends on the time period and setting. You have to also design all of those. So if you look at it, there's a different people you work with. Pre-production, you typically only work with um, game director or art director and also writers because this is also when If the game is not an IP adaptation and game is completely new property, then someone has to also write a story, right? That's really involved with also the environment concept part. So that's the ideation part, and then you go into production. That's when you're actually working with a team. There's two teams, like one is art team and one is a design team. So designers, they will tell you what type of environment they need and what happens in that environment and what's the layout should be. Back in the days, we used to get like design block out from the level designers. So they'll either go into my now I can they can also block it out in the game engine a lot faster. But back then they block it out in the gray mesh and then actually tested out all the traversal timing and experience and place the AI enemies and really figure out the whole layout first, and then we get the blueprint, and then we just paint or design on top of it. So you work closely with design team and then also the art team because art team is eventually take your concept art and they have to make the full final artwork, right, for the game environment. So this is one of the example I did for God of War. This is kind of like loosely indicated as like there's a big scroll and Kratos has to like jump, run across the side. By the way, the mirror painting was a friend of mine. He painted this for me, Easy Medrano. So when I got this layout, it's like I'm like, okay, that's kind of weird. Why would you have a scroll here? But I kind of start painting it and it's kind of okay. It ended up okay. But the key was what I'm trying to say is you have these random, not random, but it's kind of gameplay specific layouts, and then you have to figure out where the character is gonna run, stop, grabbing what, and then all that. So this is purely paint over 3D blockout. And then this is also done for one of our game, Gabriel Yaganen. He's an amazing artist. He You also have to do like these landmarks for going into these games, right? Because sometimes you stand in front of the door and then you it has a certain meanings that's kind of like also blocking the creating a combat arena or something. So we actually used to design a lot of doors and gates for God of War series. This is a different game. And then also like this is fun part too. You actually figure out how it's going to open up, how it's going to move, all that stuff. And then back to production work. So this is also done by Cuba Lee. We did a lot of multiplayer, not multiplayer, Call of Duty, yeah, Advanced Warfare. I think this is this is the first Call of Duty that actually required a lot of environment design because it was like actually adding this futuristic element to the world. So we brought in to do that, and you can see this is already blocked out in the game. They were actually playing the game with the blue blocks. So gameplay is approved, layout is approved, then it comes to us. We just do a set dressing, but this requires a lot of the There's the people who likes to work on detail. When I say detail, is not like rendering. When I say detail, is more like, oh, it'll be cool if there's a little trees over here. Oh, it'll be cool if there's a overgrown the moth over here. What about coming up with these little signs? All those things is like you naturally needs to have some sort of interest in that, right? Um, So if you saw, then it's this process is very fun to do. Yeah, you have to think some time to do this, but we were doing like a lot of these for Call of Duty project, and then this is also part of your job to create explain the details of sections, right? Now this is strictly to provide information for modeling purpose. And then I want to just kind of show you guys this game. This game is also the game that my company we internally developed this game, but different scale, meaning like this is for mobile, and we only had like year and a half from the to launch the game, small team. So, however, coming coming from the art background, I saw it as a more opportunity to create a new IP too. So this game was kind of like top-down strategy, the PvP, but it's a card-based game. It's kind of like a Clash Royale, but we added another layer of depth by introducing champion mechanics. So all of these characters you see, that those are the characters you can collect and you can use, and they have different fighting mechanics and all that stuff. So what we did was we kind of like let's figure out what this world is first. So you can kind of see what do you see in here? Do you guys see anything? Do you see any glimpse of something in here? Sudden random question. Um, so not sure. Okay. Okay. Maybe difficult. But there's a head and there's a spine. So we create this kind of lore. Yeah, it's a dragon. So it's a it's a lore about back in this or the different universe. They were fighting over this crimson. Crimson is actually part of things that came from this dragon war. And then back then we start the myth with this. There's a good dragon, a bad dragon, and the planet is created by the dragon. So once this map kind of drawn out, and we can kind of understand, oh, there's a swamp area and there's like snow mountain area, there's a desert, and it's kind of understanding the dynamics of this land. And back, we were kind of like also thinking about Game of Thrones that was pretty popular back then. And then this is one of my painting. Again, I really like this early exploration. So I was kind of thinking about this idea about swamp area. And then you can kind of see I placed this metal gate thing. Maybe that can be used throughout this area. You can make one asset and you can use it for other areas too. And then interesting traversal areas, not flat land, and just kind of like a little bit of exploration. And so even though game itself is like happens in all the tight arena, we also need to understand what this world outside of arena. So this is kind of like the pre-production process. And then by doing so, we also understand the architecture style, right? How much of Gothic elements we want to bring in and why, and what type of material, because this is close to certain resources are available here, and why the building top is green. All of things you have to kind of like ask ourselves and answer it. That way we don't go like um, just create a random stuff, right? Um, we did have enough time, but we did best we could. And then one area got really interesting was this underground area. This is also done by Saifu Haiku. He's a good friend of mine. He's an amazing artist. So all of these people that I work with, they're fantastic. They're very talented people. This one, I really like his version of this kind of really doomed like a dragon area underground. This is also Dylan Shire. He did a mountain area. So once you have an understanding of this key location, then you can think about designing this arena for the game, right? Yeah, this is it's kind of like the uh, working Cuba and um, Cypher worked on this together. And then like we also sometimes we do this like it's kind of like pulls out and just kind of seeing a bird's eye view of where progression to understand the progression, right? So if things needs to be adjusted, we can decide it here. So it can reapply to the level design. This is also really helpful game design purpose. So sometimes you have to make math. And this is actually combat map in the game. So everything is more like a basketball arena. So one side is tower, the other side is tower. This is done by Lucas Zhang. It's a beautiful work. And then this is another level, but this is like swamp area. So you can kind of see the everything's green, but has a little bit of connection to more Northern Indian or Islamic architectures and statues. And then this is also done by Lucas. Yeah. And then this is another levels that we're thinking more like a prison area. So there's a lot of chains and like spikes and stuff. This is also um, when I say iterations and being a service provider, meaning you have to kind of like handhold your clients and directors and making sure like they get what they're looking for. The only way to do it is sometimes providing a lot of options and then just kind of remove things that doesn't work for them, right? Um, so communication is very important too. You can pretty much your artwork it will communicate itself, but it's a collaborative approach, meaning sometimes you have to express your thoughts too, saying like, you know what, we should go with this design because I think um, we have another area, but that uses chain a lot, so we probably don't want to use chain here, and I really like this materials. So collaboration means it's not like always kind of have a same opinion. Sometimes you are giving them different perspective. And you have to be a good listener too, and really good at taking feedback too. And from here, and then we do models, right? And then, yeah, and then all these things is a mobile game. So even like we didn't have to, but we actually made these little people in the back as a card, and we actually did a little animation too, because we were really enjoying this game too as we were developing. So yeah, this is kind of fun. So. Now back to everything I said. So concept art and environment art, because I'm an environment art guy, because I like the fact that you get to involved in these things. First is a narrative story development. When I say story, it's not really about dialogues and single hero's story. I'm talking about what happens in this place and how does that impact other places, how does that impact heroes development, and then the also you get to explore world building. Um, you get to look at a lot of things done already in medias and books and movies, and trying to come up with your own the thing. That's also really fun. And then when you do environment art, you actually work designing a level design too. So again, this is not everyone's interest, but I like doing that. So yeah, I mean, so you get to work on this a lot of different part of the game development. So uh, this is more like after I graduate from school, Final Fantasy, I didn't really think that this was needed, but when I got into God of War, and then after that, a lot of these things I was doing, I always try to find answer in this geographical, cultural, and historic reference. So we are in like time where a lot of this research can be done easily, right? Whether it's on internet, YouTube, there's a lot of research documentary and stuff. So if you have an interest, curious about something, you can always go deeper and deeper. And every time I was involved in a new projects, this has been really fun thing, almost becomes a hobby. So even just looking at the world itself, everything here is like happened in 2000 years, except Egyptian. And let me see, there's um, other civilizations, but within that time, there's so many like different architectures and cultures being established. So this will give you an idea like why certain things are built certain way, why certain materials were available here, and why they were focused on one thing over the other, and why they're not existing anymore. All those things are like big puzzle piece, right? And then it really helps game design, world building side of things. So just want to show you guys this. And then there's a lot of areas that we don't know because it's not as prominent or talked in many medias yet. So, for example, like for Sky, Children of the Light, we were based on the Bhutanese architecture, which is like the top Mongol area. So you can play the game and you can kind of see the similarity there, especially when you get into Great Prairie or the migration. So yeah, so okay, so you can ask like, hey, how long does it take to do a painting? So that's just really hard to pin down as a one answer, but typically sometimes, let's say the Call of Duty image that I showed you guys, um, yeah, probably like 4 weeks sometimes because of black and white, probably like week and color com a week, and then final rendering maybe 2 weeks. So, but then you're not working on anything else, right? Just one area. So actually 1 week on one thing, you could get quite a bit done. And then black and white again, going back to different environment art concept. This was also done for Echo Time Assassin Champion promotion trailer for League of Legends. So the Cuba Lee, we actually got a brief on this character, and then this is like I think it was Giant, Giant or Targon. It maybe one of those like the steampunk area. I think it's a city. So the teaser actually he's kind of like running around this area, and we were kind of thinking about just snapshot of this potential layout, what the inside could be. All right, so now talk about how to make your work stand out or make your work. There's a couple the tips I can give you. One is like emotional impact. And then one is adding storytelling elements. So what do you mean by emotional impact? So when you do any paintings or artwork, you need to kind of know what your goal is, right? Let's say you want to draw a portrait. You want to make this portrait to show the person's struggle or how like deep thought he's in, or is this portrait about this person's content and very peaceful face or pretty face, like singing music, whatnot, right? So unless those things are figured out before, when you start working on the painting without knowing it, you're missing the very important thing, which is like the emotional impact. So when I was doing this painting, it was really quickly done, but the ask was like, can you do this jungle scene with a really warm lighting and very inviting, but a little bit of mysterious things happening about these people? So I think that's the one thing that we don't think about, and we put in too much about polish and then details, and then the painting, no matter how nicely executed, is missing the impact. So something you can think about. Look at this painting. This is also done for Sky, but it's uh, it's very simple, right? And then it makes me think like, what is this place, right? Is this who built this, and then why is that the crystal in the center so shiny, and what happened if I go through this gate? So all of these things, these are little things, but and this very clear about this composition is very center too. So it's just like I wonder about this place, right? And that's the magic of the game is the wonder of this world building. When you play Sky, you can pay attention to what's around you, but eventually you will start asking, where am I? Right? What is this place? Right? That's the huge power of creating environment art in games. And then what about this one, right? This one is really important gameplay moments where you drop down to the Hades and before Hades. This is sort of middle area, purgatory, not purgatory, but there's three judges in the Greek mythology. They will judge you like either you're a sinner or whatnot, and then this is the setup. So I did this painting, and everyone was wondering what this area is going to look like because this is kind of important gameplay section. So you are also kind of like uh, answering, suggesting the team to be inspired. And then this is kind of not a concept art, but I really like Brad Holland's work. He's an illustrator. His painting is not big, but he does all these simple editorial illustrations talking about social issues and editorial stuff. So this is like another thing that you can make your artwork to be powerful, meaning there's this hidden story that you can put in, but in a metaphorical way, meaning like it's not literally guy slashing the dragon, but what if after what happened, right? Or um what if a dragon is not there, but dragon is only see the eyes, or I don't know, but what I'm saying is, if you respect the audience and then you give this kind of uh, yeah riddle or some sort of poetic storytelling, then your artwork becomes very powerful. So one of the fine art painters, Mark Tenji, his painting is like 10 foot, but I'm thinking, where did this idea come from? What is it trying to tell us, right? There's a shooting rockets, and then these guys are planting a tree. And then I'm thinking, what is that guy holding a wine and this the what do you call it? Rocket looks like the tree next to it. So there's a lot of these contradictory elements in here, but still the painting itself is beautiful, right? But it's not just the beautiful, it just makes you think. I think that's the that's also can be applied to the game environment. And yeah, and then I teach. One of the class I teach is a game art and indie and experimental game art. So I do want to any students to think as um, like designing their own game at some point. And this is mostly like IP development too, because you have to think about this unique world and what happens in here. And each artist has a very different style. So even though we are service job, but just by doing so, um, you hit the wall, and you're not really developing any content as an artist. So on other things you have to do is like you have to kind of work on your own stuff too. That could be just series of paintings and your own developing your own style, abstract paintings or printmaking, or it could be pottery, whatever, right? And every artist has a very strong voice and style, and understanding what your style is also really important too. But then be flexible. So you have this main style, but you can also change it or adjust it if you need to. So it's another Joshua's the monster game idea. So, and then this is Beatrice. Everyone has different because everyone has different cinematographic the creative process where you see information and you process it and you interpret it in your own way. Okay, so I guess the last thing, I think when you're working in as an artist, I think the most important thing is like you reason you're being an artist because you that's going to make you happy, right? And then eventually helping others and inspire others. The power of being an artist is you can inspire other people, and not just the audience, but also the artists that are working with you. And that's exactly what concept artist's job is. Um, and then like just want to like discuss philosophical talk, but I think we also need to kind of understand like we unnecessary to fear all these things. Am I good enough? Is paintings, if I put it on social media, it's not gonna. All those things are unnecessary things that kind of eating your creativity mind. So it's really important to stay productive and like as long as you understand how to protect your creative mind, yeah, this journey will be fun and paid off. Okay. All right, that's everything. I want to show you one video
Oh,
if I
great.
if you don't mind. It's a 1 minute video. This is actually the just want to show you. Oops. Okay, just wanted to show you guys the skies and listen development and play the game if you want
That
to do.
looked so fun, Cecil. Thank you for sharing that and for sharing your presentation with us. There are so many fantastic tips that I hope this audience will walk away with. And thank you so much for walking us through the whole process of what it is to be an environment artist specifically, and what that exactly entails. Because I know it is a more specific route within the larger world of concept art. We have some questions that have come in from the Q&A, so we can answer some of those. An anonymous attendee asks, do you have any suggestions of how to break into the industry after graduation when internships are mostly for students?
Oh, okay. So yeah, it's probably the first job is the most difficult to break into once you get hired or start working. Um, and then there's a lot of people are also you're looking for a job. So what I can say is you just have to be very visible. Whether you constantly post your work on online or LinkedIn or something like that, or you also seek for like professional experience by collaborating with other students and stuff like that too. So this is where like it takes time but it's worth it, you know. And then the internship is not always the first step. If you miss that internship requirement, you have to kind of apply as a junior artist. And the one thing I can tell you is you just have to kind of do research on who's hiring when, and then really understand their art style. So, for example, like if the company is making sort of stylized look, or the company is looking for more realistic creature look, then at least you need to have some samples. Um, and don't be shy, because another tip I can give you is like asking for opinion is not like you're not bothering anybody else, because I think when you're in the students, you're supposed to ask, and you can reach out to the professionals. Probably hard to get an answer sometimes, but you're constantly doing that. Also, going to help you stay inspired and motivated.
Great answer. And also just to add from the BRIC side of things, it's not an internship, but BRIC does offer an apprenticeship for folks who are residents of California. So I'll drop that link in the chat as well. There is a track for concept artists, so that could be applicable here. In terms of Cecil's advice about, trying to get feedback, definitely apply for those portfolio reviews if you see them. BRIC is offering portfolio reviews as part of our upcoming summit next month. So I'll be sure to add that to the chat as well, so you all have those resources. Great. Next question. Someone asked, an anonymous attendee, I wanted to break into the industry, but I'm worried about the AI trend. How do you think AI will affect the industry, especially for graduates? Cecil, what do you think about that?
Um, I think for time being, I don't think it's an immediate like things to worry about. Maybe 10 years later. But right now, how I see it, AI is going to be used in some extent, but not actual final art. A lot of times you use AI to quickly sim randomized ideas, ideations and stuff. But I do see there's smaller production, meaning like indie studios, whatnot. They could be using AI for the purpose of their the efficiency and the saving budget. But I don't think that's going to happen in actual bigger studios or main industry. Yeah, so my answer would be we all should be pay attention to how it's advanced and how it's gonna benefit you. But I don't think it's a direct threat, especially for art direction and early like ideation part. Yeah.
Great. All right. We have Megan who asks, I've heard a lot about toxic workplace environments in the game industry, particularly with excessive crunch times, abnormally high workloads, discrimination, and generally poor working conditions. Have you experienced anything like this yourself? And do you think conditions in the game industry have...
Amelia Bennett's topped the 2025 Oscar nominations with 13 nods, plus it's a big...
Was that you, Cecil? Oh, I think Cecil's experiencing some audio issues. Hang tight, everyone. It sounded like it was like an autoplay ad, maybe. I think I saw someone else's question in the chat, so
Yeah,
make
I'm
sure
here.
that folks, you're using the Q&A button to make sure we're not
Sorry.
missing any of them. Hey, Cecil, welcome back.
Yeah, I'm good now. Sorry about that.
All good. Do you want me to repeat the question?
About game industry.
Yes.
Toxic workplace environment. I think it's gotten a lot better now because of crunchy and all that. Especially, I mean, I think there's always emergency situation, but not necessarily for art, but a lot of engineering and stuff. Sometimes game can crash or not. And then you will have to kind of understand the shipping a game is a massive like undertaking, and everyone needs to be kind of push it together at last moment, which will be the month or two. That might require for you to work a little more over time, but it's it's that's the process. But that has been reduced, I think, and especially if you're an entry level artist, I think you'll be compensated. I think that's required now. And then other toxic environment, I don't know. I haven't experienced any toxic environments where culture is always brought up in every game company. So one thing that you have to also ask when you get hired is you kind of have to understand what is the culture of this company. You know, every company is like own identity and it has own objectives and own leadership style and stuff. So that's a very good question, but yeah, I think majority their game industry is great. Yeah, and also I've noticed a lot of people from other industries coming to game industry because of game industry sometimes allow you to have a creative input instead of just being a cog in the wheel. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Mariana asks, can you tell us more about your process before creating a piece? How are the pitches you get from them? And do you usually ask extra questions to the director? Do you start with sketches and receive feedback before moving into a more detailed piece?
Yeah, typically the picture will be handed off to me in some sort of document, but very brief. But obviously, we'll sit down and, you know, get direct explanation on whether it's a character or environment or just kind of pitch artwork. And do I get to answer questions? Of course. Yeah, yeah. Like too many questions. Yeah. Because by asking questions, the idea gets more solidified and better too. So
What
that's
are the types of questions, Cecil, that you normally ask back to directors?
um just things that might not figured out yet, like what materials or for example, like does it metal? Can I use metal for this architecture? Or if there's a weapon, what is it power? What kind of power does it use? And if there's a character, and what's the attitude? Do you want this character to be like goofy or tough? That kind of stuff.
Those
Yeah.
are all good questions. All trying to get to that storytelling narrative piece that you were and that emotional impact, right, that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
All right. Megan asks, seems like you prefer doing more of the early pre-production conceptual type of work. Would you say there are more job opportunities doing pre-production art or more work for production slash asset making type of stuff?
Very good question. Obviously there's more opportunity for actual production work. Um, because depends on the scope of the game. Sometimes they need like 20 building interiors and that you can only get so much done, so you need more people to do that, especially entry artists probably will be doing more props too. However, um I was doing both when I started my career because I was working at Sony and Square. I started with more production work, but I had some friends, network people that asked me to help out on their own project too. So then I wear a different hat. I'm more like the person who figure out their style, right? Whether that project gets made or not doesn't really matter. that's what I mean by really important to be open about any opportunities. So put your kind of like ego or whatnot aside. Anyone kind of see you as talented artist and wanted to work with you. Sometimes they cannot pay you, but I took on all these opportunities. So eventually, as I have more experience, I do more of the pre-production stuff. But yeah, answer your question. I think there's more opportunity for finished work. Yeah.
Good to know. An anonymous attendee asks, other than Unity, are there any other applications that can create 3D games for beginners?
Well, technical question here. Yeah, I mean the Unreal is similar.
Applications that you use on a day-to-day basis?
Oh, but I mean the question is about the 3D. So yeah, I don't know. I mean you guys might know better, but I think Blender also has some game building features. Um, I use like just Photoshop. That's it.
That
And
simple?
and we do have our own engine, so that's not available for public, but we use that to review and check out the things that we need to. Yeah.
Great. All right. And it looks like we got one last question, which is a fun question from Megan. What are some of your favorite games to play right now, Cecil? What are you a fan of right now?
Uh, I was playing Greece and then their new game Neva, but kind of stopped. So yeah, but then I was playing Alan Wake 2. Yeah, and then there's a rock climbing game, the French game. I forgot the name. Jusant.
Hmm.
So I play games and I stopped. Yeah.
You got to make time for work sometimes, right?
Yeah. Or sometimes the combat is too hard or the level design is a little confusing. Yeah.
Neva. All right.
Yeah.
Looks like April is familiar with that in the chat.
Yeah.
All
Cool.
right. Well, that is the last of our Q&A questions here. And I know we're already 5 minutes over time. So Cecil, I just want to thank you again so much for doing this speaker series with us and educating us all about your career and what it takes to be a concept artist, specifically in environment art for games. For everyone who's still here, thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned in the chat, this recording will be available on BRIC's YouTube page, so be sure to check that out if you want any replays of Cecil's wise words. So Cecil, thank you again, and hope to see everyone at the summit or at the next speaker series in the next 2 weeks. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.